Howdy folks, and welcome back to yet another review. This time, we're traveling to a galaxy far, far away, and seeing something that definitely feels like it came from the past, for better and for worse. That's right, it's the 2026 film, The Mandalorian and Grogu. Or The Mandalorian and Baby Yoda for folks who didn't know that little sprog had a name. To start, let's get a bit into the background of this film. The Mandalorian and Grogu is a 2026 sci-fi action adventure film. The film was directed by John Favreau of Lion King live action fame, and the film was also written by John Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Noah Clore. The production companies behind the film were obviously Lucasfilm and Fairview Entertainment. The film was released on May 22, 2026 by the Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures Company. The film was rated PG-13 due to violence. So far, it has an estimated budget of $165 million. So anyways, with all that out of the way, what's this film all about? Well, according to IMDb, the plot is as follows. Once a lone bounty hunter, Din Djarin and his apprentice Grogu embark on an exciting new Star Wars adventure. And, yeah, that's one way to sum it up. The trailers themselves didn't really do a good job at, telling anyone what the actual plot of the film was. They sort of just showed characters and explosions. From what I can summarize so that folks actually get a good idea, the Mandalorian now takes jobs from the New Republic in hunting down Imperial remnants. During one job, the Mandalorian is tasked with working with the Hutt cartel to save a member named Rada the Hutt in order to exchange him for information on a wanted Imperial warlord. Then shenanigans ensue. Being completely honest, the story is just sorta there. I'm trying hard to talk about it without spoiling anything, but then I realize there isn't really much to spoil. There are no huge twists or turns, the bad guys are clearly telegraphed, the good guys are easy to recognize, everyone spouts exposition to plainly explain their worldview, it just plays things very safe. There's also the nagging sense while watching this film that Disney does not want the status quo to change at all for The Mandalorian and Grogu. Spoiler I guess, Grogu doesn't say a single word still. He's still just a sort of 50-year-old toddler that can't speak. And as for The Mandalorian, well, he's still basically the same. He hasn't really changed much at all since the show ended. He's still the same guy, a bounty hunter with a soft side, who also doesn't do much bounty hunting. If anything, he sort of regresses a bit by getting back the Razor Crest. It isn't the same one, but it's basically the same one. It's like Disney figured that people wouldn't recognize the character unless he had his iconic spaceship, so they just sort of gave it back to him. And they also give him another thing that is, kinda cheesy. I won't spoil it, but yeah. And I mean, look, cheesy isn't always bad, but the Mandalorian as a character has just remained incredibly stagnant, I feel. And I honestly feel kinda bad for Pedro Pascal, because he has some great acting chops, but he's basically being forced to just never change his performance. Din Djarin just exists. He doesn't show much emotion, he just walks in and shoots a bunch of people and blows some stuff up. And I also want to say that as far as Star Wars stories go, this felt incredibly low stakes, which also isn't a bad thing. It was just another adventure for the lone wolf and cub. If anything, it kind of felt like a sort of mini-season of the show, but there was no grand overarching Imperial conspiracy or anything, just Mando going toe-to-toe with some gangsters. Again, not bad, but don't go expecting the balance of power in the Star Wars universe to change. In and out, a quick 132-minute adventure. Moving on, there's not much to talk about with the characters, well, besides one, but I'll get to him in a moment. First, there's everyone's favorite Rebels character, Zeb. He just sorta shows up in the film. If you watch the cartoon, hey, good for you. You get to see your favorite character. I never saw the cartoon, so I didn't really have any sort of feelings seeing him besides, hey, they're showing this guy a lot, he must have been important in the show I never watched. Look, I might check out Rebels one day, I just need to get over how anemic the lightsabers look in it first. Anyways, it was nice to see Steve Blum's name featured in the opening credits. He's a phenomenal voice actor, having voiced one of my favorite characters in fiction, Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop. Dude deserves all the Disney cash he can make. Speaking of cash, there was also Sigourney Weaver, who finally makes her Star Wars debut. And she doesn't really do much for most of the film. She's in it for like 3 or 4 scenes. Same goes with that alien Martin Scorsese voices, except he's got like 2 scenes. And still gets featured in the opening credits. Basically, there aren't a lot of characters in this film. It's a very small roster. That one bounty hunter Embo shows up and does some Kung Lao hat tricks. Other than that, there's only other one surprisingly major character in it, which is Rada the Hutt. Now, personally, I actually enjoyed Rada. Like, it was neat to see what a Hutt looks like while it's fighting. I think Jeremy Allen White also did a good job voicing him. But for some reason, whenever I saw Rada on screen, I kept expecting him to, sound like Seth Rogen. I don't know why, he just seems like a Rogen sort of design. As we continue, let's talk a bit about the action in the film. There's a decent amount in the movie, from fighting stormtroopers to monsters in pits, and even some droids. There's a whole assortment of bad guys for our protagonist to throw down with. And you know what? It was also decent. Lots of lasers being shot and dudes slumping over, plenty of CGI monsters being stabbed. It's all perfectly fine. Like, there was nothing that really stood out to me as the cream of the crop, but hey, that's alright. Not everything can be the duel of the fates. Oh yeah, and CGI monsters remind me about the effects in this film. They were alright. Like, it wasn't James Cameron Avatar levels of high visual fidelity, but it didn't need to be. The explosions looked nice, the various different monsters and droids looked cool. It was all perfectly serviceable. Like, I can't state it enough, it was alright. Not everything needs to be super duper detailed. I don't need to see every single pore on Rada's face. The texture they used for his scaly hide got the job done. Oh, and fun fact, looking at Wikipedia, it seems that Tippett Studio helped with some of the stop motion work in the film. If you own the streaming service Shudder, I suggest you check out their completely stop motion animated horror film, Mad God. That film really has nothing at all to do with this review, I just think it's really neat. Oh yeah, and obviously my favorite effect of this film was Grogu. I'm a sucker for puppetry, so I was pretty delighted to see him do his thing, even if his movement was pretty stilted because he's a metal armature covered in fabric and foam latex. It's just neat to see some practical effects, you know? I'm glad that it's still part of Star Wars. Moving on, the sets in this film were alright. There were some practical sets, which I appreciated, but obviously most of it was, you guessed it, CGI. And look, I'm not going to cry too much about that. It's hard to make a convincing alien diner or gladiatorial pit. Sometimes you just gotta break out Unreal Engine and make some digital sets or whatever. I don't actually know if they used it for this film, but I'm too tired to look up what they did use. Finally, we have the music. The score for this film was composed by, and I really hope I pronounce it right, Ludwig Göransson. This name might be familiar with cinephiles as he composed the soundtrack for Sinners. And you know what? I think his score for the film is probably my favorite part. Well, besides Grogu. It's very different from the usual Star Wars standard. There's still orchestral notes, obviously, but there's also some synth mixed in there too. There's action-filled gladiatorial music. There's some somber, contemplative notes when Grogu goes on his own. It's just a very nice, varied soundtrack, I think. I'm not a music expert. I never claimed to be. But for me at least, it has some of my favorites that I've heard in a Star Wars project. So, overall, would I recommend The Mandalorian and Grogu? And honestly, after typing everything out, I would say that you may want to just wait a bit. It wasn't terrible. I need to preface that so freaking much, otherwise some weirdos are going to show up and blame the women and minorities for some reason on why Star Wars is declining or whatever. It's a perfectly fine, white bread sort of film. It's kind of plain, inoffensive, would maybe go well with some butter and powdered cinnamon. Okay, the metaphor got lost there a bit. Basically, it's just okay. And honestly, that's okay in and of itself. Not every film needs to be revolutionary or the greatest thing since Citizen Kane and Casablanca. But with the way prices are for everything these days, well, it gets more and more difficult to justify non-essential expenses. If you were to go just by yourself to, let's say, an AMC and see it in IMAX, that one ticket is probably going to cost you about $20 in my state of Indiana. And if you want popcorn and a drink, that's like another $15 or more. That's $35 for one trip out to the movies, and that's for one person. Now, imagine going out with all your friends or your family or children, buying seats and concessions ahead of time. I'm not good at math, but it probably comes out to a lot of money. What I'm trying to say is, the film already feels like a mini season of The Mandalorian. So just wait a bit and see it at home. Again, it isn't bad, but it really isn't worth all the hassle and effort to see it in theaters right now. Especially since there's a ton of other films coming out soon that will also be vying for your attention. And I mean, look, it'll be in theaters for like a month anyways. So if you're still on the fence about what to see, just wait a bit. See reviews for other films that are coming out, and if you're just dying to see something in the theaters, maybe compare what's available at the time. Because while it can be fun to see a big budget movie, sometimes there are far smaller films being released that really end up surprising you the most.